You're listening to the Bourne Partners podcast. I'm Chelsea Ingle with Bourne Partners, and we are coming to you from DCAT 2026. In this episode, our second in the series around our recent CDMO report, we discuss how AI readiness is starting to influence strategy, execution, and differentiation across CDMOs in today's market. Don, I'll let you take it away with the introductions.
Thanks, Chelsea. Hello, my name is Donald Hooker. I am the Director of Research here at Bourne Partners. Last month in February, we published a deep dive research report on the CDMO marketplace. We talked about a number of trends impacting CDMOs with a particular focus on AI adoption and technology, but we talked about a variety of other trends, such as the reshoring of pharmaceutical manufacturing capacity, the changes at the FDA, the biopharma funding environment, lots of fun stuff. So we're super excited to have a chance here to have a brief conversation with Dirk Lange, the Chief Executive Officer of Pyramid Labs. Pyramid Labs is a rapidly growing full-service CDMO focused on the testing, development, and manufacturing of sterile injectable drugs,
right,
among other things. So thank you, Dirk, for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good. So I think I'll start off here. I guess the exciting news for you all that I saw in the press, you guys won a large commercial deal, and wanted maybe just for the folks out there, maybe talk about kind of trends in your business between maybe commercial business activity, clinical stage activity, kind of where you see
Correct.
kind of growth for your business at Pyramid.
Absolutely. Happy to. And again, thanks for having me. Great opportunity to exchange thoughts and share perspectives. So as I mentioned, actually Pyramid Pharma Services, which is recently rebranded Pyramid Pharma Services, goes back almost 40 years. So the business started in the analytical and formulation process development space, and then evolved into GMP manufacturing for sterile injectables, which is the core of the business. The business originally started with vials, liquid lyo, and then evolved into a prefilled syringe, which is obviously still one of the big mega trends. And part of the reason for that is the prefilled syringes then very often get further processed into auto-injectors, especially for self-medication drugs. So we're seeing a big continuation of that trend, and that's also coincides with our most recent investments, both in larger scale fill finish capacity, high-speed fill lines, and also most recent investments in auto-injector assembly and functional testing. So with that come new clients, and it's fantastic to see that it resonates, and we keep growing with our client base. So the recently announced contract is one result from this, and it's a large pharma. So always great to see that we're holding up to the scrutiny of very large, very reputable companies that put us through due diligence processes. So yeah, very proud of the team.
Good. And I guess when I think of sort of sterile fill finish, the marketplace, you have these sort of mega CDMOs, you have the Catalents, you have the Lonzas, Thermo, Patheon, et cetera. How do you position Pyramid with respect to some of these larger CDMOs? How do you differentiate your business?
Yeah, Pyramid is quite uniquely positioned in that our capabilities are certainly on par with the large organizations, clinical and commercial manufacturing, supplying the US market, but also EU and global markets. Very much an end-to-end approach in terms of the service offering. So anything from early stage development, getting our clients into clinical studies, first in human, all the way to commercial launch globally. And also across a very broad spectrum of technical capabilities, as mentioned, vials, syringes, cartridges, auto injectors. So certainly a set of capabilities that you would expect from large global players, but at a scale where we can still be agile and flexible, and engage with our clients at a level that's maybe a little harder for the maybe top 10 players, I would say.
Okay, interesting. And I guess there was a lot of buzz maybe 18 months ago, 20 months ago, 24 months ago, time flies, with Catalent getting acquired by Novo. I think a lot of people were in your space were sort of excited with that might sort of open up opportunities. I guess Novo taking some Catalent's capacity sort of in-house. How now that we're sort of removed from that a little bit now, looking back, how did that play out for you guys?
Right. I think it definitely shook up the industry. There was for us positive fallout in terms of exactly the supply demand situation that you're describing. Right. Certainly a number of clients got displaced that needed a new home for their drug. And in the CDMO space, it's rare to come across a large number of already commercialized products that need a new home. Right. It's a very sticky business, if you will, where clients don't very often move their product once it's commercially approved at a site. So with the need for them to transfer out, there was certainly a large volume of late stage and commercial products in the market for that period of time, which certainly a lot of CDMOs benefited from. There's another interesting aspect and angle that came with that, and that's more the question of what is the long-term strategy of a CDMO, and is the CDMO going to be around as a CDMO long term, or what are the odds, so to say, that one of your large clients takes over the facility, which has not been a question prior to that move. Us having strong financial backing and a very much long-term focused outlook and strategy for the business, we're not affected by it, but it's definitely a set of questions that occurred more often after that event than it had before.
Yeah, interesting. I guess another sort of theme that we've sort of I thought might be interesting for your CDMO is just sort of the sort of effort by the Trump administration to reshore. That's a big policy focus, to reshore pharma manufacturing back to the U.S. And I think we had argued in our research that might put a nice bid on domestic pharma manufacturing capacity and domestic CDMOs. And of course, that's what you are.
Right.
So have you seen? I mean, how much of that's sort of narrative versus reality at this point, or how do you see that playing out over time?
I would say it's both. It's narrative and it's reality. I think on the reality side, at the very least, a lot of pharma companies that have their drugs launched or plan to launch their drugs in the U.S., they're at the very least considering to set up their supply chain in the U.S. So I think time will tell how many of those tech transfers and launches out of U.S. sites will ultimately happen. But the if you look at the sales funnel for us, and I'm sure very much so for our peer companies, there is a very large volume of products that are being quoted to be transferred to the U.S. So it's definitely creating a lot of opportunities. Talking again, late stage and commercial programs, they don't typically move very fast, right? So these are long-term strategic decisions to be made, but it definitely increased the number of opportunities, and ourselves and I'm sure our peers are definitely benefiting from it.
Sure. And I guess one of the other on that topic, with potentially more manufacturing kind of coming back to our side of the ocean, kind of is sort of the issue of labor access and shortages. I've been hearing more about that. I don't know if that's something that you see. I mean, it's a good problem to have when you have so much, potentially more business.
Have it.
But we see all these splashy headlines from all the big the big billion-dollar reinvestment advisor, and you start asking, like, do we have the labor? Right. Are you seeing labor pressures? How do you manage that?
Yeah. From an at scale perspective, I do think that there's probably going to be an imbalance between supply and demand for not just talent when we talk like exceptional, outstanding SMEs or experts or leaders, if you will, but just workforce in general. And specifically, if you look at some of the cluster areas, right, with billions of dollars being invested in Texas and North Carolina. And those states have done a nice job, I think, over time building really a pipeline and an engine to create a skilled workforce at all different levels of an operation and quality and regulatory. But I don't think it can even out. So I do believe that with some of the massive investments, which is a good problem to have, it will create another very dynamic environment in the workforce.
And I guess maybe one last topic I'd love to get your perspective on is this sort of the emergence of all these sort of very unique sort of, you know, modalities, therapeutic modalities. I'm thinking like, I don't know if that's the right phrase, ADCs, radiopharma, bispecific, all these very unique
Yep.
modalities of therapy. How have you kind of looked at that, and how do you see that changing the competitive landscape for folks like you?
It does change the landscape, and it creates opportunities, I think, for specialized organizations that are not just mainstream trying to sell large capacity, but that have more as a kind of an technology and capabilities angle to it, and Pyramid does to that matter. Right? So we handle multiple very complex products. This could be a non-water-based drug that sits in a very complex matrix that requires specific techniques. Radio labeled drugs, ADCs. Those are probably in a corner that's even more unique and specific, right? The moment you need dedicated or specialized facilities in order to handle certain drug types, that's definitely continues to be a niche. But complex, bispecific proteins and antibodies are molecules that can be later on radioactively tagged, for example, is a great example of things that companies like ours can do. And we're definitely benefiting from a more diverse portfolio of technologies that's out there compared to years ago, where indications might not have been as refined, and therefore the therapeutic answer was maybe more generic than the technologies that are out there right now.
Well, maybe in closing, so I guess if I understand, you've been CEO for 2 years at this point, about 2 years, right? You came on, and so you sort of, what's next for Pyramid? If you look at over the next couple of years, what do you have in the hopper?
Exciting things to happen. So we have just very recently announced the expansion into our high-speed sterile fill line, which is a fantastic asset with the filling of vials, syringes, cartridges, and we're really growing with our clients in this space. There's multiple clients that are growing into that scale that we can now continue to support over the next decades, and then also rounding up the capabilities with the auto injector assembly, labeling, testing capabilities. So very exciting launches for this year, and excited to onboard and support more clients.
Well, Dirk, I thank you for your time. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can keep the dialogue up. And for those out there, please check out our research at www.bourne-partners.com. Thank you, Dirk.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you again for listening to the Bourne Partners podcast. Be sure to visit our website at bourne-partners.com to read more of our research. Also, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter to be the first to receive our proprietary Bourne Partners research. Have a great day.